Hola, hola. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. How's it going? Welcome. We're really excited. We are live right now. Marce, the executive director and founder of Azul, and Ernesto. We want to introduce ourselves in a second. We're going to start by myself. My name is Ernesto Vargas. I'm the director of community organizing and campaigns with Azul. We are here to share more about the one of the very last new programs that we have with Azul. It's called the Rising Leaders Initiative. We're really excited to tell you more about this. It's a program. It's unique in many ways. And today, the session that we have here is to share more about it, to tell you more about what we're planning, why is this very exciting to us, and why should be exciting for the rest of our community, for the movement, fighting to protect the ocean and our communities that are being impacted. So we'll start with a brief introduction now with Marce, and then we want to get this conversation rolling. And we want to encourage participants. You're joining us right now. Please think about your questions, anything you want to find out today, and then we want to do our best to answer most of those questions. Marce, please welcome. Thank you for joining today.
Gracias, gracias. Thank you so much for having us, for organizing all this, to Team Azul, for making this possible. Especially Jessica, who's the whiz with all the technology and digital. So thank you so much for the whole team, and especially to Jessica. Mil gracias. Thank you for joining us. Um, I am joining from San Diego, California, and very excited to be here today. As Ernesto mentioned, I'm the founder and executive director of Azul. And Azul was started in 2011 to create a space for Latinx folks in the ocean conservation movement. And we're very excited to be here. We've been around for almost 12 years, and it's been an exciting, actually more than that, 12 years, an exciting journey. And with this initiative, we are hoping to replicate some of the success we've had creating these spaces in California with Latinos Marinos at Ocean Day, which, by the way, is coming up on April 11th in California. So you're in California, also join us for that. And we're very excited to answer questions and tell you more about it today.
Thank you so much, Marce. Well, let's dive into this conversation about Rising Leaders Initiative. So, Marce, can you tell us more about this program? What is this Rising Leaders Initiative program? I'm pretty
Yes.
sure people want to hear more about it. What are we planning for it?
First and foremost, is an opportunity for folks to get engaged, to take steps and to release take the opportunity. If we look at our polls, and I hope we can put our poll later on here today. We had a national poll last year speaking about, how the Latinx community in the U.S. was extremely supportive of ocean conservation policies and supportive of increasing some of these protections. And the fact is, the conversation is kind of lacking that, and sometimes it's because folks don't really have that opportunity. You still go to a lot of these events, to these spaces, and we're still missing. And it's not because we don't have that leadership, or we don't have the interest. It's because we just haven't organized to put those processes in place. And that is a whole other conversation about systemic issues and investment in the community, et cetera. But we're hoping to move ahead with this. And so the Rising Leader Initiative is an opportunity for folks to get engaged. Who is someone who could be a rising leader? We're hoping for people that are new or newish to the process. There's no prerequisites there, and we'll go into details later on. But anybody who's interested in the U.S. is able to apply. And I say in the U.S., I know that we have had some interest from elsewhere, and we're working on that. But at this point, this is where it's at. So there is a training. There's some training modules that are directed by the fabulous Ernesto Vargas with Jessica Vasquez Mesta as well. And then we will have a week in DC. And what will we do in DC? We'll have actual practical trainings, workshops, We are going to meet with elected officials. We'll meet with administration officials. We'll meet with other folks, other ocean leaders. But the idea is that this is a welcoming and interesting opportunity for people to really take a step into ocean conservation at the federal level.
That's amazing. Thank you, Marcin. One thing I want to add to the information you shared about this initiative is the fact that it has no cost for
Correct.
anyone to join this program. As a matter of fact, there's actually a stipend that it's been offered to participants, and all the costs involved by participating with this, like traveling, lodging, will be covered, so participants can actually join the different sessions and that trip to Washington D.C. to go see the decision makers and stakeholders and be part of that space where decisions are being made. And we would definitely want to hear more about what Latinos have to say about these issues, ocean, how is it impacting our communities, what changes do we want to see, what stories should be told about this movement too from the Latino perspective. Um, Adding to that, just like Marce already mentioned, alluded earlier, we want to have a few sessions planned for this, and the idea is to equip our participants to understand a little bit more about the different issues that are important when it comes to the movement that is fighting to protect the ocean and protect our communities. Some of the sessions will be focused on key issues, on key topics, but also part of what we want to do is to develop some of the skills, find the ways, the channels, the voices to be able to tell the story about our communities and how we've been actually part of this movement for generations now. And sometimes in those spaces where like we think that are more like the mainstream movement that it's actually talking about these issues, you don't see a lot of brown faces, you don't see a lot of Latinos, you don't hear a lot of Spanish, but we are there, we are actually involved, we're engaged, and we're willing to do more. Sometimes the space is not big enough, we need to make this umbrella a little bigger. So the reason why we're planning the session is to keep our community members in this first class, this first cohort. We only want to take 15. It's the first time
Max.
we're running this max, and this is the first time we're doing this with Azul. I think it's one of the first programs in the history in the US that is focusing on communities of color, on the Latino community. And that part to me is exciting to see that we're opening the door for folks to be able to join and be a voice in the space that historically you don't see that much diversity. So we want to do those sessions. We want to have different topics. We want to develop skill, knowledge. More importantly, we want to build community. We want to connect folks that like that are already been doing some of this work in different corners and parts and towns in the U.S. That makes me think also that it's bringing that narrative and changing the perspective. And I think, Marcia, you always emphasize this, changing that idea of who is an activist when it comes to fighting for the ocean and protecting the ocean. So that's part of the focus, but the work that we want to do, and a little bit of the cherry on the cake is to bring these participants, these first class, to Washington D.C. and be in a full week of action with a little bit of what you already said, Marce, workshops, sessions, panels, meeting with members of Congress, maybe meeting with some federal agencies that are relevant for this conversation, and putting these voices, these faces in front and center. That's a little bit of what we're planning. But if you have any questions, cualquier pregunta, any questions about this program, if we are not saying something you want to hear, please drop it in the chat. Póngalo ahí en la ventanilla de preguntas de conversación. And we want to take all of those questions and do our very best job trying to answer those questions.
And we are going to go, if we hear questions in Spanish or requests for that in Spanish, we'll go into Spanish. So just want to make sure that we're being as inclusive as possible here. One of the first questions that came up was, are the pre-workshops going to be virtual or in person? The only time that we will be in person will be in DC, and all the other prep will be virtual and or online. So, and once we have the cohort, we'll figure out time that works for folks. But accessibility is the key here, and availability. So we're working really hard to make sure that this is, again, something that's feasible for folks and that works with people's lives, understanding that folks have other obligations and work, etc. So we're trying to focus very hard on that. And so that is that first question that we have there.
Thank you, Marce. Following a little bit on that, can you tell us a little more of some of the people should be applying to this program? Someone you alluded a little bit to that earlier, but who should be applying to this program? Who do you want to see in that program? And if there's any other questions related to that, please put it in the chat.
I think everybody that's interested should be applying to this program. It is open to everybody, hopefully 18 and over, so you can travel easily. But we are looking for anybody that's interested to be an ocean advocate, or is already an ocean advocate, that wants to take their skills to another level, that wants to have those opportunities. And it's also when we get these workshops, we also want to make sure that these preparatory, I don't know how to say it in English, sessions also inform the DC week, right? And so we also inform those sessions that we need and we have in DC. So it's a little bit of see, I don't know, I lost my English today. Retroalimentación. So this is something that is interesting for folks, and that we also are having and programming something in DC that's worthwhile for folks, and includes all the interest and all the focus and the points of view. I will be honest, we are prioritizing folks that have had the least amount of opportunities, and that's the one thing that you'll see from us in terms of applicants. That doesn't mean that if you've been part of something before, you're not available for this, or you're not able to do this, please apply. We're just hoping to make sure that we are, catching on folks that probably haven't had those opportunities before. And that's where we're coming from. It will be in Spanish and English. So that's just the kind of cultural focus we're bringing here. Like Ernesto said, we will have a stipend for people, understanding that, if you are away for a week from work, that could, may or may not have paid time off. You may or may not need, to prepare for that, etc. And we want to make this as seamless as possible. I think both Ernesto and I have been that person that gets, sent on the lobby day or the visit without the proper preparation or the right preparation ahead of time. And we want to make sure that folks have a welcoming and just a really welcoming experience to this, because what we want is for folks to feel that this is part of theirs, that this is part of their movement, and importantly that they can share with other folks going forward, right? And also, sorry, I saw a question that kind of put me out of place. The idea, and we're still fundraising for this, so that's why we don't have as many details, but we will be working to make sure that folks have funds to do some of that work in community after the fact. So there's not a one-off. We're trying to really work on building this community going forward. And I think we might have lost Ernesto for a little bit, but oh, there you go. I was gonna say, this is how you know we're live.
Okay, I think we're having some technical issues.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, we're good. Can you? Everybody can listen. Do we have any issues with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have some questions there on the chat. Thank you for submitting your questions. Please keep submitting any questions you have. So in terms of the session, what we're thinking, just to go back to the idea of the sessions, just some of the first questions for the first session is going to be done remotely. We want to be using technical. The reason why is because we have people applying from different communities and parts of the country. We are asking people for this first class to be applied from within the US, and they're going to be about 1 hour and 30 minutes each session. And we're planning right now, we have on calendar 4 sessions before getting to Washington, D.C. So it's going to be, a commitment that it's going to be at least to think about 2 hours to 2 hours and a half for each of these weeks, because it's going to involve some prepping, some homework. We definitely want to make sure like people get to practice some of those skills. So session per se, 1 hour and 30 minutes, but think about the commitment as 2 hours and 30 minutes at least for these sessions. That's going to be, we want to be actually having those sessions every other week. leading up the way all the way to June for Ocean Week in Washington D.C., the week of action that we already have on calendar. And I saw a real question right there about age. We are asking because it involves traveling and involves being away from home. We're asking folks that encouraging people that are 18 and over. But I think if we got some candidates that maybe closer to 18, we'll be considering those folks too. So it shouldn't, if you're really excited about this and you're about, to be 18 or you are like around that age, we want people to be applying. We want to encourage folks to apply. Shouldn't stop you, and we're going to be talking to the different candidates and see what we can do. But again, we definitely want to make sure that this program is an entry point, that we're opening the door to folks that normally would not have the opportunity to be part of this kind of programs, to this kind of opportunities to join the movement, to get to that point where like you are actively engaged and basically raising the voice for our community. So yes, please keep bringing some questions here. We will be doing our best job, and hopefully we don't have any technical issues, because I think I was having some technical issues. But if you have any other questions, we're happy to take them. Anything else to add there, Marcel, in terms of like who should apply? What are some of the restrictions we may see in terms of age or location, anything like that? Anything that I'm forgetting?
I think that's it. Again, if it's something, we're hoping for 18 and above, just again, because it's easier to deal with that. But, if you are someone that is moved to do this and you're in your teens, then go ahead and apply, and we'll see how we can work with that. We are trying to, again, make it as inclusive as possible. But I think what's very, very important here is that we don't just assume that it's for youth and for young adults. This is open to everybody. We talked a lot about the name actually of Rising Leaders, and we mean rising leaders as in rising voices, right? We're not just talking to one group of folks. We're not just talking to youth. We think that anybody and everybody at every age should be able to enter the ocean movement, not just those that have made a career out of it. So please feel free to feel yourself included, see yourself in this, and we're very open and hoping to have a vast myriad of ages apply and have part of the cohort. And I do see a question about the afternoon or morning virtual meetings. I can jump onto that. We don't know yet. We're looking at what is most conducive depending on the cohort, but either one of those will still be thinking about the fact that people have, for the most part, day jobs and have other obligations. So we'll try to work with folks to make it as accessible as possible throughout.
Just to add to that, Marce, and for folks wondering about that, we want to make sure that we present like the availability and what works for most of the group that it's been fire group joining this. So that to be announced. And another speaking of announcements or like important date, the last date to apply, it's April 7th. Don't forget to submit your application. And you have any questions, where you go to the registration page, you have the contact information where you can submit any questions. We're happy to take you don't think of any questions right now, but later, hey, I should have asked this, please send us an email. We'll be happy to answer your questions. And moving forward with the conversation, we go to DC. We're gonna have a lot of fun there. We have to do a lot of work, bunch of meetings, a lot of conversations, sessions, workshops, panels. Normally, ASU has a big celebration in Washington D.C. Marcel about it. It's become a little bit of the Latino influence in the movement. It's making sure that we bring good music and a little bit of a party to the work. Marcel can tell you more about it. But then after that, it's when the work with the community starts. Once that we have our celebration, we and graduate this first class in Washington D.C., which is planned to have that ceremony in Washington D.C. as part of that week of action. Then we want to work with the different participants to implement, to deploy some of the work plans that they've been working throughout this program and then go to the communities, because we know each community has their own needs, their own challenges, their own aspirations, their own issues. So we want to work with the different participants to put plans and support all the way that work, because what we want to see after this program is to see more Latino activists leading the fight in the different communities across the country. So that's the most exciting part to me too. Like, it's not just about the class, it's not just about the program, it's not just about the sessions I'm going to DC, but it's the work that comes after. Right, Marcel?
Correct. That's the idea, that you don't just kind of, stop here, but that we're building that community. And like I said, we've all been that one person in the room or one of few people in the room. And it's different when you come in with your group, right? It's different when you come in with people that you know. It can be an intimidating place, but we're hoping that if we all come together, that we can be heard easier, and that we make it a lot easier for folks to, more comforting, welcoming for folks to talk about, to join. I am getting a question. Resident, not necessarily formal, permanent, or U.S. Resident or citizen. Let me put it this way: I am not checking anybody. We are not checking anybody's paperwork at any point. I do know that we need to be able to enter into contracts, and as we talk about stipends, et cetera, there are probably going to be tax implications there, or paperwork there. So that's what needs to be considered. But in general, we're looking at folks that are, residents in the broader term, and that's where I can leave that.
Thank you. That's a good question. I think it's important for some our community to know a little bit who should be applying for this. That's a really good question. In terms of I see another question from Armando about the stipend. Yes, the stipend is going to cover the participation, but also any cost related to travel, from lodging to transportation. It's going to be covered by this program, so the participant doesn't have to worry about covering any of those expenses. So that's going to be that it's going to be on Azul. Yes, Marta?
Right. So we're paying for, so the initiative is paying for travel, for lodging, for food, for snacks, for trainings, and the stipend is on top of all that. Because I know that there might be other costs relative to this that we don't know, or again, taking time off, et cetera. So we're trying to make it as fair as possible. But in terms of logistics and actual transportation and being there, we're covering all of that. If you maybe have like an extra churro or bagel somewhere that we didn't hear about, maybe we can circle about that. But in general, we're endeavoring to pay for all the costs, the total cost of being there in DC.
Yes, no, thank you. That's a really good clarification. The stipends on top of any of the expenses related to travel and lodging, that's going to be already arranged and covered by Azul. The stipends on top of that is for the time commitment and work that folks are going to be putting into this program. Just to be clear. Yes.
Yeah. And we're still working on the funds, on the community funds to ideally grant later. I can't say at this point that we'll have for everybody, but we are looking to have at least some of the folks to have community projects that they're able to work with when they go back. And that, just to be very clear, we're fundraising. So funders, if you're listening to us, please let us know if you're interested in supporting it.
Yeah, and to add to that, that's when we meant that the work, the work that we want to see coming out of this program, going back to the communities, is after the graduation in DC. That's what Mars is talking. Like, we want to be able to also have some resources that we can make available for community leaders to go back and run projects. And we know, like, some of that work, it will require some resources, will require money, and that's what Mars is saying. We're working on getting some of that funding. But yeah, hopefully we're going to have news coming up, and funders will be excited to see that taking off. I see another question. Armando, could you please elaborate more about community work from July
So
to September?
that is a self-directed project, right? So that would be self-directed projects that you elaborate through the process. And we can't tell you how many hours or type commitment comes in that. And even July to September is sort of like an idea, but it could be a little bit longer, we put in a date because we ideally would like to have some, something to, look at in September. But I think that that is the most open part of the process because we have to be very open to what folks are coming for and come like what ideas they're going to have in their own communities and their own location and their own projects. So that is very much self-directed or community directed time commitment and relates to what you come up with for that.
Yeah, I think it's a little too early to say what exactly is going to happen after that. I think we're excited to see what people will come with as projects and what are some of the work that we could be seeing that it's happening right after this first class. And for sure, there is a lot of work to be done.
And
I think that
I will say that, if you're hearing us with like some um openness around this or a little bit esoteric is because we really want to co-create this, and so we're not trying to come in with, especially with the community projects, to come in with something fully baked. And so this is a concern and a ongoing and a valid complaint that we have sometimes as community members, that we get folks coming in and telling us, just kind of rubber stamp this or support this. And so if you hear this openness, it's because we're trying to not put too much form into this, because it's not going to be per se ours, but rather community and folks leaders specific. So that's why you see that.
I see one more question here, Marce
uh,
Armando.
at this point, I will say, let me say this: we have money to work in the US at this point, and that's basically where I can come from this. That doesn't mean that we're not open to collaboration, but the funds that we have are all specific to work in the US. And so that's mostly where we're focusing in terms of community work. And I know that that's quite um, not encompassing. And I say that as someone that's sitting, we're having a binational conversation here with folks and understanding the diaspora, especially that's so germane to our communities rather. But at this point, that's where we are. Again, we're trying very hard to fundraise around this, so we're not opposed to it. But right now, we have funds to work in the U.S.
Thank you, Marce. Um, we can take a few more questions. I think we're getting to the time where we were planning for this session. Again, if you can't think of any questions right now, or you may think of a different questions later on, you can go to the registration page. I don't know if Jessica can put it. It's right there. Actually, that is right here. You have the link in front of you.
There you go.
Thank you, Jessica. She's really good. And you can read a little more information, a description of this program, but also you can submit any questions you have, any questions. You don't have it today, later on. Remember, the last day to apply is April 7th, and the program is going to go all the way to the ceremony to June, and then we're going to have exciting plans coming from different participants, and they're the ones going to be shaping most of that. We want to co-create with Azul, as Marcia said. But again, think about any questions, feel free to submit. Please apply. Encourage your communities and networks to apply. Anyone or any organizations that work with folks that could be interested or that are doing some relevant work. We want to see more. We want to see more people excited and applying to this program. And this is the first one. We definitely want to make that success, so people get excited and more people and more funders support something like this moving forward in the coming years. Anything else to add to this about Rising Leaders initiative, Marce? Anything that we should emphasize before we wrap it up?
Well, Ocean Day in California, which is coming up on April 11th, by the way, again, for the folks in California, started out with 7 people, and it grew to over 90 pre-pandemic. And so, small, sometimes big things start small, and the importance is to create the space that's welcoming and that people feel validated and heard. And that's, I think, the most important part. So we have up to 15 spots, and that's, to be honest, in terms of funding. But we also want to make sure that this is a really, again, works out for everybody that's part of it. So it may be that you see a smaller class. It may be that you see a middle class somewhere in between, but we're really looking at creating something that is that has a good mix of folks, that has a good mix of interest, that really we can, in the terms of capacity, really work with folks one-on-one, and that they feel that this is something worthwhile for them. So just FYI, we're hoping to have a big class, but at the same time, we also want to make sure that this works out for everybody that's involved, and that they get the most out of it. So you may see a slightly smaller class, a middle class, or a max. So we're it's all in who applies, and hoping that if you have the smallest inkling of interest, you come in.
Thank you. And yeah, no, thank you for emphasizing that part about sometimes like we need to start with small step, and a 1,000 mile journey start with one step, and this is a beginning for not a beginning. This is an amazing new program that we're starting with the community or our communities. So more to come for sure on this story about the Rising Leaders Initiative. Friends, thank you for joining today. Muchas gracias. It was a pleasure to be with you to take some of those questions. And we want to be around. If you have any other questions, please feel free to go to webpage, submit, and we'll do our best to get back to you. I think we want to wrap it up for today. Thank you for joining again. Marce, thank you so much.
Muchas
Um,
gracias.
and we'll be making announcements soon on this program. But for now, we definitely want to get the word out and get more folks to apply to this program. Thank you, everybody. Please share it. Send more people to apply to this program.
Churros for everybody, says Armando.
I like that. Yes, I love
I like
churros.
that idea. Ocean
Thank you so
churros.
much, and thank you so much for the Azul team for helping to make this happen, and especially
Gracias.
Jessica. Like
Yeah.
you put all this together. Thank you, Jessica, and the rest of the team for helping with this session.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias.